Okay. Let me tell you, Drew, I got a bone to pick with you. You want to know why?
Bone?
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you. Is that the same? Bone to pick?
Sure. I mean, I have so many bones to pick. Like, pick clean? Sure. Why not?
Let's
What's
run
up?
with it. So, my bone to pick with
Mm-hmm.
you is that
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine did this like best villains of Disney in on like Instagram, and it's come to my attention that you have never voted for Scar.
I did vote for Scar. I voted for Scar this weekend on a thing about who the best Disney villain was of all time. Literally on a list this weekend, I voted for Scar.
It's a
So
three-way tie between Ursula, Scar, and Hades. Am I
I
right?
put Cruella on there. That was my third one, was Cruella, because
Ooh,
I'm really into the Cruella this season. Anyway, guys, welcome to Cinema Bias. We got a really good show for you tonight. But first, some freaking video. Hold on. That's always that's like a fun little jaunty little noise. I love that. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much for Crow Danny for making that intro for us.
But speaking of thank you, and yes, Danny, thank you so much for doing that and putting that together. I just want to thank our guest. We have a pretty amazing guest that's coming on today, and we're going to be coming in a pretty interesting movie that's their choice. Miss IG champion, Miss all around badass, and pretty cool lady and fellow cat mom. Her name is Mara Knopic. You might know her, guys. Maybe.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Mara.
This is a living thing right here, this little blob.
These are living things as well. Well, that's one. Wait, the other one's gone, I guess. There was another one here.
I think it ate the other one.
Yeah, probably.
Bring mine on screen, but they kind of hate me right now because of cat reasons. Clearly.
Cat reasons.
Mara, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I'm so excited. I was floored when I heard that my delightful sister in Weird had not seen this movie.
Never saw it. Actually, watching this movie, I had this weird thought of, have I seen it? And I just immediately erased it from my memory. So I might have caught this or parts of it before, and I just like, some of it looked familiar. Let me put it that way. Some of it seemed familiar enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of iconic scenes. There's a lot of iconic moments, lines, characters overall. There's a lot to kind of chat about this movie. It's a very simple movie, however, a very iconic movie of its time. And real quickly, just want to let y'all know what the heck movie we're talking about. We're talking about 1987's Oscar-nominated Predator. Yes. Crazy, I know. Mara, tell us. We're going to be going into our personal movie biases, about what makes us going into it, about our personal biases for or against movies. But can you tell us a little bit about what your movie bias is for or against this film as your pick?
Well, I'll have to be generic in order to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
So, true story. I don't have a lot of experiences in common with a typical female experience. And my parents wanted a boy. So, I mean, that informs you just a little bit about, like, I was given Tonka toys and stuff to play with, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But I don't identify with most female characters in movies at all. So I am much more, I have an affinity and a natural like attraction to like a big, dumb, burly shoot 'em up movie or something like that. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like when a movie can create really great characters and can craft like three-dimensional people. But I also like a movie where I get to watch a bunch of, you know, sweaty people try to hunt an alien in the jungle. So in a way, I freely and completely have admitted many times that I'm a little biased against like female-driven narratives, only because I can't relate to them personally. It doesn't make them bad movies. It just means, given the option, if I'm flipping through cable, I'm not going to watch that. I'll watch this.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing is that Mara hates female-driven films, but
Mara hates women.
Exactly.
What can you say? That's what she said. That's what you heard out of her mouth, and that's what I heard. So that's definitely what she said.
yes, I mean, it sounds like you definitely, as a result of your childhood, really gravitated towards a lot of stereotypical male films and male stories overall. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember. All my friends were like, "Let's go see this like tween romance movie," and I was like, "I don't care."
Yep.
No,
I mean,
like
I was to be honest, this is also my bias. I was very much the same way about most film. I mean, that's kind of why I got into the horror movies, I think, because like they did have female characters, but like the female characters were usually like pretty cool and badass, or they got killed off pretty easily. I really gravitated a lot towards horror stuff, but I also grew up in a household that wanted a dude for a kid, and they got a dude's name instead. They just kept going with Drew.
I to a certain extent, I'm incredibly jealous because I have a very girly girl upbringing. And when I say a very girly upbringing, it's not so much and again, just want to reaffirm to everyone in the chat as well, there's nothing wrong with preferring one or the other, Barbies over Tonka toys or anything. This is not like
this is a good preference bias.
It's just about our personal biases going towards certain genres and what kind of motivations really kind of led us there. Now, my personal biases and why I didn't see this movie until this year, actually earlier this year, because I actually had a C2A movie challenge. Once I found out I never saw this movie, it was like in early January, and then they challenged it, and I was like, actually, I've never seen it. I've seen
so your ass hasn't seen this movie either. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of crap for it. You haven't seen it either.
I have seen the sequel, several of the sequels. Like I've seen Predators, I've seen The Predator, I saw like the third one, but I'm
very interested. I'm very interested to get into the larger Predator mythology. That's what I'm interested in, because I've only now seen the first Predator movie, but I'm really interested in sort of diving into what the rules are for predators, because I hear that they're very like they're a rule-based society. They're very like about honor and principle, and I just want to know a little bit more about that, because you don't get a lot of that from the first film.
What I'm hearing again from Drew is that she is trying to make the Predator franchise a slice on the wheel potentially. So
it is slice on the wheel.
It is for Geekdom.
Slice for teams and singles in the future for you. Okay, so I like I said, I really kind of gravitated growing up towards a lot of romances, teen romances. That's my upbringing. Personally, I had a lot of female friends, and as a result, a lot of action movies, especially action movies of the 80s and 90s, I really actively steered away from. I have not seen Speed. I haven't seen Point Break. I didn't see this movie.
So what I'm hearing is you hate Keanu Reeves.
Well, that's the thing. I hate Face Off.
What is wrong with you?
I've actually never seen that.
I
wait.
hate Face Off so much.
What is wrong with both of y'all? Face Off is the best.
Well, again, it's just I don't like corny action. I get annoyed most of the
but
time.
Alex, he takes his face off, and it's Nicolas Cage, and he does that.
I get that, but it's just something about it.
I'm
annoyed the entire time. I can't explain it, but that's why I actively steered away from watching this movie, and I'm actually very grateful I did. So thank you, Mara, for really kind of forcing us to watch it. I rewatched it again earlier today. Now,
but me, enough about you guys. Let's go to me, because I'm the one who hadn't seen it. Yeah, I guess I always thought the difference between Alien and Predator was that like one was an action film and one was a horror film. And I don't like action films. I like horror films. I like when an action scenes come on, like I usually like my brain like tunes out. So when I say that I think I might have seen some of this movie before, what I mean is I think I've definitely seen this movie before, and my brain just like turned it into like blurred, like static noise. Like I don't like gun violence. I don't like really loud explosions. I don't like stuff that like feels like the kind of violence that could just happen in life. Like I get very like traumatized if there's too much car explosions or like too much, car accidents, or war films like really trigger me. Like I just get like, if there's too much gun violence, if there's too much like explosions or too much car accidents, I get really kind of turned off, and my brain just sort of just turns into like a mute sort of background noise, and my brain just starts to float away. And I feel like that might have been what happened when I first started to watch this movie, because now that I've seen it the whole way through and I paid attention, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. It has the conditioning of a war film, but then like secretly it's about like an alien. But like I can see how my brain would have processed this as a war film, and like on the basis of like what it seemed like it was going to be, and then just sort of filtered that out of my consciousness. So that's kind of my bias. I don't generally see a lot of movies with too many explosions or too much like death, like that's just sort of like war death, where it's just like mass death like that. Like I still haven't seen Schindler's List or anything, or Shoah. So, you know, there's always Shoah. But oh, hey, we got a donation. Let's see if we get this up. Hold on.
Love that cinema.
Hi, Vernon.
Oh, love that cinema bias. Thanks, Vernon. Oh, thanks for the donation. Yeah, I should have said Streamlabs are open, guys. So feel free to donate through Streamlabs, streamlabs.com/VideoDrew, or through Super Chats. Both are open. Both equally nice. But if you do through Streamlabs, you will have your stuff read out loud. Excuse me.
And yes, and thank you so much for every donation. Every donation is just to keep the lights on here over at Cinema Bias, obviously, but also Drew doing amazing things on our Patreon page. Also on the other side down there in the corner. There's a lot to kind of dive into this movie. Something you did mention, actually, Drew, is the war comparisons, a lot of elements of action as well as horror and everything.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, we got to get to the real juicy stuff, and we need to know the plot. So, girl, you got 60 seconds on the clock, and since it was technically your first time to watch it.
Yeah, technically not, but technically fine. Sure, I'll do it. Do I have to know any of the characters' names? Okay, I won't.
Yes.
Okay, so you got a minute on the timer?
Starting now.
Okay, so there's these like special op guys that are going to, I believe, like Vietnam to like do this black ops operation where they're supposed to be taking this diplomat out of like enemy territory. But it actually turns out it was like a fake operation with this Green Berets. They're supposed to actually figure out what happened to these Green Berets who were like destroyed. Oh, thank you, William Harrell, for that donation. And it turns out that the Green Berets were destroyed by this predator, which is this thing that can like mask itself like anything in the jungle. It can sort of turn opaque, like it's clear. And then Carl Weathers is there, and so is like Jesse Ventura, that guy who was the governor, and Shane Black, who's telling some awful, like heinous jokes about women's vaginas. And then they all get picked off by the one predator, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger decides to put himself all in mud so the predator can't see his tracking, like his heat tracking thing. And then the predator's like, okay, I see you, man. Like game recognized game. And then he takes off his predator helmet and like, whoa, it's like an ugly thing. But that makes it like a little bit more even playing field. Okay, and almost at the end.
I'm actually incredibly impressed by that, because save for only a minor grievance with location, like she basically gave us almost the entire movie without mentioning the chopper, but that's okay. That's incredible.
Where does it take place? Is it Korea? Was it
Central America.
Oh God, why did I think it was Vietnam?
Well, because it's compared to the Vietnam War. That's why.
That's crazy.
And also the Anna, her character, she's also Asian, which is.
Well, no, that's the weird thing is I was looking at the actress afterwards and I was like, I don't think she is Asian. I think she is, because the actress's name is something that it sounds like South American. So I was like, wow, it's weird that she was playing somebody in Vietnam. I feel like the actress might be the woman from The Village who gets the chopper. I feel like she might be like her name didn't sound, when I looked at the casting credits, her name sounded like.
My money says she's Filipino.
Oh, maybe.
Like Filipino names and like.
But that makes a lot more sense that it's from South America.
Names and they really.
That was just really weird central casting that they would cast somebody from South America from Vietnam, but this makes a lot more sense.
Overall, Mara, what are your thoughts on her summation?
I'm incredibly impressed with the level of detail. She didn't just simply say a bunch of big army guys go into the jungle and there's an alien and explosions and gunfire. Like, she was incredibly detailed, establishing what they were thinking they were doing, what they were really doing, kind of establishing the sequence of events as in people get picked off. It's mano a mano. The Yautja face is like super awesome, and that's about where she left off. But I mean, it's not like a super plotty movie. It's really all about what's happening in the situation the characters are in. So I felt like she gave us the whole story almost. Save for the chopper. That's like the one thing.
Save for the chopper. And having not known where Get to the Chopper is from and now realizing it's from this movie, can I just say how many times that they foreshadow him saying that line? He continually refers to the helicopter as a chopper throughout the film. So by the time he says get to the chopper, it's not this out of context, like get to the chopper, like thing. It's like he's been saying chopper throughout the film. He said chopper when he first shows up. He says chopper when when he sees a downed chopper. Like there's choppers throughout this film.
But also, more importantly, we need to hear an impression. Mara, give us an impression of getting to the chopper.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that one as well.
You can.
I can talk about the CIA got you pushing too many pencils. I got that one.
That's really good. That's really good.
Dude, you gotta. Can you do an impression?
Pencils. What's he say? Like he's like, you some ugly motherfucker or something. He's like, wow, you some ugly son of a bitch. I can't really do him. Get to the chopper.
Oh man, one of the best handshakes of all time.
Was that a handshake or was that a hand? Were they doing a hand war? Were they doing like an arm wrestling?
They were like, and you're like, oh, you're weak.
Oh, so my brain fritzed out on this, and I thought they were arm wrestling for some reason. Maybe because that happens on Twin Peaks. I thought they were arm wrestling and out of friendship, as people do.
I've seen that GIF, whatever, tomato, a meme a bazillion times. I had no idea it was from this movie until earlier this year.
Look at how thick their arms are. It's so weird. I don't like the veins. I don't like it. Taking it off screen.
It's crazy. This was also I do want to kind of talk about the stars real quickly. Carl Weathers, obviously, he's more known. It's definitely, it's not his. I don't think his most iconic character.
It'd be Action Jackson or Arrested Development. One of those two.
Yes, but he's. I just keep thinking of Happy Gilmore just because I'm a '90s baby.
Oh, I know, Chubbs. I love that. That was the two characters I thought of. I was like, okay. You're going to be Apollo Creed and you're going to be Chubbs. Those are the two iconic roles. And I
had to remember that in this movie, he gets his arm taken off, essentially. And then in Happy Gilmore, he has an arm taken off by an alligator, but it's the same arm.
Wait, Amber is saying that her husband worked for Arnold in the CA state capitol. I wish I could loan him to you for 45 seconds to do his impression. Remind me some other time. Amber, if we raise $100 tonight, can we get your husband to come into the room and do his Arnold impression? Because I will bring him on camera. Let's get that happening. Let's get that trending.
I forgot about this. Okay, if anybody hasn't seen this, if you want to experience pure joy, regardless of politics or anything of that nature, look up Arnold Schwarzenegger doing, it was from like, I think April or May last year. It was pretty early in the pandemic and he was encouraging everyone to stay home. And he had a mini horse and a donkey with him.
Yes.
Whiskey and Lulu were with him in his kitchen. And he's just feeding carrots to a mini horse and a donkey in his kitchen.
Yeah. And he was like, stay home. And you were like, okay, you're one of the good ones, Arnold. Like, I feel like this entire pandemic, I'm like, Arnold's one of the smarter ones. And that's like a weird thing to think, but welcome to 2020 and beyond.
And then watch the one though where he gets his vaccination, his first shot. It's awful. It's so awesome because you think you know where it's going, and then at the end he just like gets one in there, and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. It was joyful.
I'm starting to, I'm like the kind of fan of Schwarzenegger where at this point I wasn't in California when he was governor, so I don't know any of his politics. Sorry, I'm like moving this bar around everywhere. I'm trying to find a good place where it's not over my head, but it's getting to the point where I'm just like, Arnold was probably the best governor, right? Like he was California's best governor as far as I know, because I don't know any better.
Well, we don't know off the top of my head. I don't know any other governors, to be completely honest.
I mean, our Gavin guy is not great, I feel like, but whatever. Everything's messy, but this is not a politics thing. If so, I could have gone into the thing about how Jesse Ventura, who plays Blaine. His name is Blaine, which is a weird name for a character. Blake or Blaine?
Blaine.
That's a weird name for a character. I felt like this came up during training recently. I'm not sure, Mara, if you were there, but this came up during training, and I really thought I had it in the bag for who would play a character named Blaine. And my guess was Shane Black looks like a Blaine, but Jesse Ventura does not look like a Blaine.
The thing is, when you think of the name Blaine, it's not Blaine. It's just not Blaine. Blaine's not a real name.
It's not a real name. The more you say it, the more crazy you feel. Blaine, 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 Blaine,
Do you
Blaine,
remember
Blaine.
that Ducky says Blaine in
Oh yeah.
it's not 16 Candles, it's Pretty in Pink, where he's like, his name was Blaine? Blaine?
Yeah, it's not a real name. It's a fake name.
Yeah, it's a fake name. Like, what kind of fucking name is Blaine? But
apologies to all the humans out there that happened to, by no fault of their own, be named Blaine by their parents.
Yeah. I hope you've changed it since then. I hope you've changed your name to something other than Blaine. Because people must be going Blaine, 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 and then going crazy.
Less Blaney.
Yeah, be less Blaney.
I know you said there's a lot of big themes in this movie. This movie, I think, is not only considered one of the most iconic action adventure films, but it's also considered one of the more iconic horror films of the 80s as well. It's definitely, I would consider it an action horror movie in particular, but it's also, there's a lot of things behind the scenes. I mean, there's a lot of themes on war. There's themes of PTSD on, there's this kind of relationship, and like, is this considered a toxic masculine film? I actually found from 4 5 million different lists saying that it's considered, where it's at least in the top 5 most outrageously macho movies ever made, manliest movies of all time, manliest male characters in Hollywood history. And also, it's rated number 2 as the 25 manliest movies ever made, according to Entertainment Weekly. So there's a lot to dive into in this movie.
Whoa! Did you see what Alan Smithy wrote? This is crazy.
Is it real? Is this real?
Oh yeah, that's true. Did you not know that?
How would I know that? I just found out about Predator.
Well, because you know all sorts of movie things, even if you haven't seen the movie.
That's fair. No, I did not know that. Van Damme was in the original Predator costume, which looked like a man-sized praying mantis. They got rid of the costume and Van Damme and redesigned the Predator from scratch. That's crazy news. I did not know that. Weston, thank you for your donation. I saw that. That just came across real quick. I'm going to try and make that so it's slower. That's crazy.
I would love to see a picture of that. I've never seen a Van Damme movie, to be honest.
Wow.
Oh man, there's a couple little gems in there that are just so bad they're good.
Yeah. But like I mentioned, with some of these ratings and everything, like I mentioned, what do you kind of think of these ratings? Do you agree, disagree with this idea of like one of the most macho movies ever made, manliest movies, etc.? Like, what do you think of some of the listings, essentially, overall? Starting with you, Mara.
I think it depends on what is the connotation to the term, like macho or manly. Like, is it being said in like a derisive way, or is it just simply saying that because it's a male-driven story that unfortunately just only has, by proxy of the environment that the story is set in, and also just the way that it's a team of covert operatives, which at the time would not have been able to involve any women whatsoever, that there's only one female character. However, I actually think that when you look at it, I mean, they let her live, and she was pretty darn capable. She knew things that they didn't know. Obviously she can't pass the Bechdel test, but I actually think she's a much more well-rounded female character than you would expect in the most macho movie of all time, or on a list of macho movies.
What's weird is she doesn't not pass the Bechdel test, because she technically never refers to any of the men in the movie either. She specifically talks exclusively about predators. That's the only thing she talks about. She talks exclusively about predators. So she's not talking about dudes. She's not talking about boys. She's certainly not talking about like who she has a crush on. She exclusively is like, there's that thing in the shadow or in the forest. It blends into the forest. Yeah.
I'd have a crush on a predator.
I have a crush on a predator. I know. Ladies, you ever have that thing where it's like you're in the forest with these Americans and they're definitely blowing up your village, but then also the predator?
It wasn't
a real situation.
It was guerrilla warfare. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Mara. The definition of what is macho not only has a change from manly. Whenever I look at these lists, I feel like on one hand, I was talking to my husband earlier, and I was like, these are like jokey, not real lists, right? Like, these were made to be ironic. Like, they're not real. Like, people were kidding when putting these together. And Lux is like, do you know that for certain? And I was like, no, I can't. So, what about you,
I mean,
Jeremy?
it definitely has its problems in some ways, but I think that that's a little isolated to the dialogue of just one really poorly written character. And
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing that some people would find it very offensive, but I personally I gravitate towards the group of men because having served in the military and the field that I was in was about like 1 to 3% female. It was very, very male dominated. And most of my friends were always men anyway, so it was totally fine. I fit in just fine. But that group of men feels like a dysfunctional family, the way that they interact, and they show us a lot of the history without telling us like, oh, you're the jokester, and oh, you're the guy that makes all of the oh, I'm the strongest guy on the team, instead of telling us. They show us like in the helicopter ride, you know everything you need to know about almost every one of those characters. And the Navy, if anything else, the nuclear Navy is a huge dysfunctional family. So I felt like there was an authenticity to it in that way, but that's a really specific perspective from a service member. So it's not, I understand why that does not have wide appeal and why some people don't like that portrayal of just like these macho dudes that just say really terrible things sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a totally legit perspective.
I think this movie, but I think Mara, hits on something very real, which is like, this is almost like a more realistic version of a certain kind of film. I don't think this film is macho in the sense that it's chauvinistic, because again, like there's not a lot to be chauvinistic towards. Yeah, there's the Shane Black dialogue that kind of sucks, but like you can totally imagine that in any group of guys or any group of like people, there will be that one guy, and it is a shorthand to get you across information about that character, that he is the jokester of the group, that he's the one that's always going to be cracking these inappropriate jokes. No one's laughing at it. No one's responding to it. Like they're not like, you don't get a sense that this is like some systemic issue within their culture. There's just like that one guy who's like cracking two terrible, like it's just two terrible jokes throughout the course of the film. They just happen to be really terrible. But I do believe that like given any infantrymen, any group of dudes that hang out, there will be always that one guy. So in that way, it doesn't strike me as unrealistic. It is just more like, this is the archetypes of the guys we're being given. Like there's also like I forget his name, the guy who almost makes it out of the end, because there's I like the order of events that they're picked off into, because they're picked off in, it goes Shane Black first, right? He's the first one to go. It goes Shane Black, then it goes Carl Weathers and his friend, right? There's that guy who almost gets blown up, but he doesn't. He almost makes it back to the plane. So there's a guy who gets injured, but they bring him back. Then there's Carl Weathers and his friend. Then there's that other guy who stands at the tree and like cuts himself and like doesn't do anything. He just waits for it to happen, waits for the predator to get him. And then it's so then it's just Arnold, the guy who's injured, and the chick, and then the guy who's injured gets taken out, and then it's just Arnold, and he tells the chick to get the chopper, and then it's just him versus Predator. So it's actually a very quick sequence of events. It is more like a horror movie trope of just how quickly they're taken out. But I really liked how they all kind of, for the most part, they like kind of just stood their ground. Like they were very brave characters. Like these were not the kind of characters you'd find like in a high school frat Scream movie, right? Like these were characters who found out that they were dealing with an alien and just kind of like sucked it up. We're just like, okay, now we're dealing with an alien. Fuck it. Like, okay, this is what we have to do. They adapted really well. And I thought that was like an interesting take. That kind of what keeps it from being a horror movie is nobody in this movie is ever terrified. Like, which I think is kind of a cool part of it.
I mean, I think in a way it was smart of them for them to be spec ops people, because I mean, it is warfare, even though it's warfare that they don't understand. And
were they special ops? I thought they were mercenaries.
Oh no, they were military.
Military.
I thought they might have been like, mercenaries, like military kind of thing. But
we hit $100, by the way, guys. So Harris says hello. So we're gonna be hitting that $100. That means Amber, you're gonna have to get your boyfriend on at the end here, or your husband on to do his Arnold impression after working with him. Dope. Very excited for that.
$100 like worthy impression. I
demand $100 worthy of impression. Now,
I need excellence.
When you first saw this, Mara, what was your first experience? Like when you first saw this movie, how old were you? What was your experience watching it?
Oh, I was definitely in the single digits, but I don't know exactly how old I was. I just remember always knowing this movie. Like it was just ever present, like whether it was just like on TV or whether it was something that was popped in the VCR or something, like watching it at a slumber party, maybe. Like I'm sure I forced my sister to watch it an obscene number of times. I wish I could text her and ask, but she's probably busy being like a mom and doing other things that are responsible.
Them moms.
But like, who would you say? Did you watch this with like a parent, siblings, friends, all that much growing up, or was it just something you had on TV and you just always gravitated towards it?
I would say if I could get someone to watch it, I would absolutely watch it with a friend, or if there was a party or something, it'd be like, let's watch that movie. But no, I don't recall specifically watching it with my parents, but they were very liberal concerning what we were allowed to watch. They didn't really censor anything, especially since that movie itself doesn't really have anything so super questionable, even for a younger child, at least for me. But I was a very grounded, dark child. So I feel like the concepts of death and dismemberment and stuff were not distressing to me as a child. So I probably saw it way too young, but not as young as I was when I saw Silence of the Lambs. That's like one of the first movies I remember seeing. Besides,
now you and Alex are gonna like get together on that, because that was Alex's mom. That was her mom and me movie. That was
a big mother-daughter movie. That American Psycho or mother-daughter movies, but that's another conversation for another day. But I mean, it sounds like something that you just really genuinely loved it. Now, I definitely agree with you guys. I kind of went into this thinking it was going to be the most chauvinistic piece of trash ever. I expected nothing going into this. I expected a lot of big moments. Also, the thing is, I expected nothing about this movie. I didn't know anything. I know there's an alien, and I knew Arnie was in it, but I didn't know Carl Weathers was in it, to be honest. Things like that. And so watching it, I expected a lot more, not so much toxic masculinity. I thought there was going to be a lot more casual, sexist, creepy jokes. I thought the writing was going to be a lot lazier as far as this interaction surrounding women, as surrounding each other, as far as like how men are supposed to act. But instead, there's commentary on. I thought was interesting was PTSD, which I thought was kind of interesting because in this movie in particular, Mac, Anna, and Billy all have mentioned at some point in this movie their experience with Predator, as far as like seeing him, almost being killed by him, etc. And upon describing their experience, Dylan and or Dutch, they're like, no, that's crazy. Absolutely, that did not happen. And it's almost like a ghosting experience. Like that could never happen to you, almost. But it's almost like confirmed, and suddenly they see it or experience for themselves, and they're like, oh my gosh, I believe you. And we have this moment together where we of understanding. At least that's always like some of the moments especially between Mac and Dylan, like under the tree when he's like, see, that was like one of the big moments, especially just anyone being called crazy multiple times until it's confirmed was surprisingly hit me.
I liked that they weren't like a united front against her, because you got the sense that Pancho kind of believed her because he was translating, so he understood like every nuance of what she was saying. And Billy clearly having like a kinship with nature due to his heritage and stuff, that he believed the idea that, like that the jungle could move. So
he was a Native American one, right? I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to assume that he was Native American. He seemed like he was Native American, but I had the same feeling, which is like, they weren't united against her. Her idea that like she says the jungle's alive, the jungle's coming out to get us. That's what's happening, because you can't see the predator. It disguises itself. It makes itself totally clear. And the predator weirdly cannot see you. Is that how predators work? They only work by heat.
It senses your heat,
but it doesn't. Depends on like what mode they're using, because he has all these different modes.
Yeah. When he takes his mask off, he's using a completely different mode, which is like not supposed to be heat. That's like not thermal. He's like using his whatever. That one just seems to be working on movement tracing or something. We do have, real quick, guys, because we did reach that goal, we do have Amber's and her husband, aka Ryan,
Ooh.
Arnold, aka Arnold, here to do. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
What's up, guys?
He's like, do I have to be on camera for this? I was like,
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's get it out of the way. Hey, what's up, Ryan?
Amber, look at her.
Get down! Tu noch die Wache, save it and such, and also therefore and things, all the things like that.
Go,
That's amazing.
no, wait, I lost it. I didn't hear you. Can you do it again for me?
Gotta do it again.
Can you do it again?
Yeah, you save the water, the 2-minute shower, pound on the door, tell Maria, turn it off while you're washing the hair, you do not need the water.
That's incredible. I also like how your version of Arnold is talking about the water pressure, it seems like.
Yeah,
He literally heard that.
he was all about saving water, and he had this big thing where he would tell people that he would pound on the door and tell Maria Shriver to take 2-minute showers and to turn it off while she was shampooing her hair. I'll leave that up to you whether Maria Shriver is a 2-minute shower girl. But
Yeah, I don't think that's a 2-minute. People are saying in the comments, by the way, dude, that was awesome. Great impression. That's absolutely true. That was incredible.
Good job.
Thank you.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
By the way,
That was
2-minute
amazing.
showers are literally a thing in the Navy, like on the ship, because we can only make so much water every day that when we're on deployment, you only get 2 minutes worth of water a day. So if you shower, you turn on your water, you get wet, you turn it off. Shampoo, soap, do all the things, turn on the water, rinse off, and then you're out. That's it. 2 minutes
Mara,
of
did
water.
someone not tell you guys that you guys were on a ship surrounded by water? Just kidding.
But I mean, it's not, we have to make it like potable water though. Like we have to desalinate it.
Yeah, it's like Homer Simpson washing his socks with the last of the clean water. Yeah.
I'm reading the comments. I see it's not a tumor.
No.
Ryan, that was an awesome impression. Thank you
Yes,
guys.
bravo.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Also, Amber, you're amazing. We love you. You're so beautiful. And oh, girl, love you.
Love you.
I
Thanks,
love
guys.
That was
It
amazing.
is so wonderful.
Also, very cute husband. I'd never seen her husband before. Very cute husband. Nice. Anyway, this is not turning into the girly podcast. No, this is just me. Doing that thing with people where I
the girly episode was last week with Kai and Kin, where we talked about Stardust and how we all were really into.
who we wanted to fucking Stardust. Yeah, that was really fun.
Oh my gosh, that was such a girly episode. Yeah, but this movie is considered a war movie. Quite.
I know it doesn't take place in a war.
Yeah, it's considered, like, a lot of people consider this a war movie, even though it's not technically a war movie. So I kind of want to ask, and I know Drew said, it takes place in SoutheastSia, right?
I thought it was a war movie. Now I'm realizing it is not. They just they were in a war together, right? They were in the Vietnam War together. These characters.
That's the assumption. They were in some war together, or just some thing together. Well, overall, like, why do you think that is? Like, why do we think that so many people associate this with the Vietnam War movies overall?
Well, because these characters were in battle together. They are a unit. Like, we find out, I mean, they definitely, the reason that they have such shorthand with each other is because they were like a unit together somewhere. They just operate like a wartime unit would. I guess I always assumed, maybe I'm confusing it for Rambo. I guess I always assumed like that they were doing a tactical mission and therefore they were working during wartime. I guess when I had seen this movie before, or what I had known about this movie before, like, I understood them to be a special ops group, like, army group that had been sent on a mission to go do something. So I assumed it had been during wartime. And I guess I had always assumed it was a Vietnam wartime movie. But yeah, it's when I'm thinking about it, like, this movie would have either had to take place in the past, which it clearly didn't. Like, this movie just came out in what, 80, 85, 84, 87? 87? I got there. So it takes place in 87. Yeah, what part of the Vietnam War do I still think is happening in 87? Like, no, I was just incorrect about that. But, like, I could see how that, they're using guns. They obviously are a paramilitary group, or like a military group, rather. Mm-hmm. They operate like that. They have their, the missions that they're on is to intelligence mission to gather intel about what happened to these Green Berets, which they never really do. I guess the answer is they got predatored. The answer is what happened to those Green Berets is they got predatored. So good job. I don't know whose mission that was, but the whole
Jim
thing.
Hopper. That's
Sorry.
who. Oh, Jim Hopper. That was the guy leading the other mission.
Right. So we see them for like 2 minutes, but like we never really
that's
figure out like what they're trying to, what intel they're trying to gain from this. Like what were they trying to, what was the mission? What was the intelligence gaining mission? Just figure out what happened to them.
Well, the thing is, I do think going into it, they didn't realize the intensity of the situation, the severity.
Well, they were told a lie. They were told that it was just a group who had stolen a diplomat.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And so they were set up to fail from the get-go. What about you, Mara? What do you have? Is there any? Do you think this association with more movies or just Vietnam War in general? Do you think that's true? People are exaggerating. Like, what do you think? Why do you think people kind of make those associations?
I mean, I think it's a really highly overlapped Venn diagram between a war movie and a movie about warfare. And I mean, this is very clearly a jungle warfare movie. I mean, that was unfortunately like what happened during the Vietnam War. It was, a lot of jungle related warfare. So, I mean, I think that it's just easy to kind of look at the center of that Venn diagram and say, like, this would feel similar to that because of the environment, just because of the idea of a group of people. And I mean, even just the concept of them, there being a life form that, though the predator not indigenous, but seemingly indigenous because he's synonymous sort of with the jungle, at least according to Anna's character, that it could be reminiscent of the idea of, the indigenous peoples of Vietnam fighting against American troops, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of similarities there that, if I look at something that I make a brownie and I put it in a cupcake paper and I cook it like in a cupcake tin because I'm like, oh, I just want individual brownies so I don't have to cut it and give it to people. Well, it looks like a cupcake, even though it's a brownie. So it's like, you could see why someone would say, oh, are those cupcakes?
Sorry, what's that?
While making that film Peter Private. Investigators wiretapped the film's producer. He eventually went to jail for
Sorry, that was a really interesting thing. Wait, Alan, can you put that in the chat? Because I didn't have enough time to read the whole thing, but that was a really interesting piece of information that just came up. That came up through a super chat. Sorry, I'm going to figure out a way so these super chats don't overlap with people talking, but I'm not even sure.
He was. I think he ended up going to jail, John McTiernan, because he ended up recording conversations without their knowledge. And he ended up lying to the FBI about it.
Wait, what?
He said, yeah, like he went to prison, not for a long time, supposedly, but he ended up lying to the FBI or something. I'm sure Alan / Ryan Chandler's gonna tell us here in a hot minute. But I definitely agree with you, Mara. That's an excellent point you make. This idea of the camouflage, where it's compared to like the camouflage aspect, where it's like one with the surroundings. And actually, I don't want to compare it to Alien all that much, but there's a real sense of isolation in this movie, which I did not expect. And there's this idea of like, we don't know what to do. It's like everywhere we go, we're running into the same situation, but we just need to get from point A to point B, but it's not as easy as that. And it just feels like it's just getting and closing in, almost like a haunted house. But it's so big, just so infinite almost. The nature and everything is just as terrifying.
That's one thing I love about this movie is that when you think about the idea that even though it doesn't really kind of make like a full 90-degree turn into horror until, if you want to say it, at the very end, all of the other things are still certainly very anxiety driven and suspenseful. And it happens in broad daylight, in a big wide open jungle that is like monochromatic in the sense that like it's a very similar color palette. Like it could be easily such a very boring, bland, like not creatively engineered film, but the way that it looks and the way it establishes, like you know the geography of where you are, because that's the whole point, is that the whole jungle looks sort of the same. And I don't know, there's still just like this impending sense of dread in the middle of the day with a group of very, very strong, capable, trained, armed people. And you just feel kind of frightened at times. And I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me, not I mean, but you talking about it this way kind of makes me think of the movie, and no one else is ever going to have made this analogy, so you're welcome, world. Midsommar, and that like it takes place all during the daytime. Like the whole concept of it is that it's terrifying specifically because there's no night. There is no, these things lurking in the shadows. This thing is clear. Like it doesn't matter where, like what time of day it is. Like this thing isn't hiding anywhere. I mean, it's hiding in plain sight, but like it's daytime, and yeah, you're surrounded by the most capable men possible. And how terrifying is it then when they start getting picked off? Like one by one, especially because this movie doesn't ask you to specifically relate to the one female character in it. Like it's not like you're taking her POV throughout the film. I think you're specifically supposed to be Arnold. Like you're supposed to, that's your character. That's your inroad from the beginning of the film throughout. And by the way, I never thought Arnold made it out through this movie alive. I was so sure that he died. I knew the part where like the predator laughs and then it's like a bomb goes off. So I knew that was going to happen. I thought that's where the predator died. I thought that's where the predator and Arnold both die. So to see that he made it out of the movie alive was like, well, I was like, good job. Yeah, he deserves it. This actually brings up a good question though, which is, Mara, how familiar are you with the rest of the Predator franchise? I'm guessing the answer is like a bunch. But
I'm fairly intimately familiar. Yeah, I would say we've gone out a few times.
Okay, yeah, you guys have gotten to third base. Okay, cool. So here's my question: the Predators are supposed to like Predator culture society. So I've been told is that of one of like honor and like it's one of like there's rules and they hunt for sport and they only hunt the most dangerous game. They don't hunt, as we find out in this movie, they don't hunt the woman because she's never picked up a weapon against them. Like so it's an innocent bystander. So, and if you win against a predator, apparently, so in Predator 2, if you win against a predator, you're given like a certificate or a medal or some sort of like, you're given like an object.
Right? And at least in Alien vs. Predator, when what's her face? I can't remember her name. Alexis or Alexa, she ends up helping that predator. She's like, hey, Predator is like, hey, you helped me defeat this other alien, so I'm gonna cut you.
Right. So yeah, so like sometimes they get stuff, but in this movie, the Predator is a real dick about things. Like the Predator, he bests the Predator. Like the Predator does it. He does that cool thing where he's like, okay, so like you come at me and like you did a really good job, so I'm gonna take off my Predator mask and like now we're gonna do mano a mano style fighting. And I thought that was pretty cool of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like straight up like it sets off a bomb and like laughs at him, and I feel like that's like a sleazy move. That's like a Malfoy move. That's not a cool, like I have a lot of honors.
Did you think it's a Malfoy move?
That seems like a Malfoy move. That sounds like a Draco Malfoy thing to do. It's like a shitty thing to do.
Well,
Set off a bomb after you already lost.
Ties with the Wizarding World reference.
Oh, okay.
For it.
All right.
Granted, like this could be them just like doing a retcon for the sake of preserving that honor system, but I mean, because again, there was like established lore before this. But,
okay. I didn't know that.
The Predator has his little bomb thing for when the aliens and predators, when they would hunt the aliens, to be like, oh, it's a rite of passage. You're going to be a strong tribes person, whatever. And if the aliens overran them, in order to make sure that the aliens didn't like eradicate whatever other life was on that planet or wherever they were, or kill all of the other people, that's why it would set off its little bomb, was to kill all the aliens. Yeah. So I think it was like just a modus operandi, like that they're programmed to just do that. I don't think it was like a cheap move, at least not with full intention. I think it was just like, I'm dying. It's time to just, the thing that was the threat, which was Arnold, I need to neutralize it because that's just how we do.
That's really fascinating. I didn't know that the backstory like ends up tying back into the Alien versus Predator thing, which is like, I'm sure that's not what John McTiernan had in mind, but it's cool that they added that back in, that became part of it.
There's I can't remember if it's a scene from Futurama or if it's Family Guy. I think it's Family Guy, but I could be wrong, obviously. But essentially, they kind of make fun of Predator, where it's like, oh, there's a Predator dad trying to train his Predator son, and this Predator son is like, no, I want to be a K-pop star and learn to do EDM, make EDM music. And the Predator's
sounds like Rick and Morty, honestly.
Kill this person. You need to skin this person to be an adult. And this like emo Predator kid is like, no, Dad. It's gold if you ever get the chance to see it.
Wait, so that's hilarious. So in this world, sorry, so to go back to the lore, because again, lore and the lore stuff is always what I'm most interested in. In this world, the predators are hunting the most dangerous game, but there's also specifically going around the universe searching for the what they call the aliens from Aliens.
So, okay, I will be very rude. I'll give you the 60-second version of Alien versus
Do as
Predator.
long as you want. Yeah. Go ahead.
So there's this big fortress under the ice in Antarctica, and it turns out that there's an alien queen down there. And so every once in a while, the predators show up and they like turn the queen back on so she can lay a bunch of eggs. So that way they can use a bunch of human sacrifices to let the face huggers go on their faces and then chest burst some aliens out so the predators can fight some aliens. So the idea would be that, like, again, if the aliens ended up actually overrunning them and winning, they would just set off their little bombs. So that way the aliens wouldn't take over like all of planet Earth, because that would be bad. And they don't require oxygen. So they could end up like going out into outer space and going everywhere else possibly. So they don't necessarily go to find the aliens. They like have the aliens stowed away in places. And then they just go there and they hunt them. Like it's like their vacation house.
Oh, whoa. That is
also
fascinating. Wait, was this before or after Prometheus?
This was
like
before.
So okay, so like there's nothing about the engineers in here, or like the architect. No, engineers, right? Are they called?
No.
Yeah, engineers. Not at this point, no.
Okay, cool. Okay,
something I'm kind of curious about, Mara, like you said with the lore honor, you want to kill things that are actively attacking you or picking up weapons, that kind of thing. What about what if you lose? Is it always like a big suicide if you essentially
you can't win against the predator, or if you
lose against like a bunch of humans and they just get to a point where and you're like, oh, I give up, I can't, I've been trying to hunt you for like forever.
Well, what I think I'm hearing is that they're never after humans. They're after these aliens, and that the humans are sort of like.
But when they do go after humans, but when predators do go after humans.
I mean, I think it's only like an if they are mortally wounded thing. Like so in Predator 2, Danny Glover ends up killing a predator, and the other predators don't kill him. They also don't like explode him or decide like to take him out.
They give him something, right?
Yeah, he gets again. So it's just like, congratulations.
He gets like a pistol or something, right? He gets like a free thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing from the source material, that gun. So.
Wait, what's source material? Is there like books? Is there an extended universe on this?
There was like a comics crossover between like Alien and Predator. Actually was like, it's an adaptation. It wasn't just like, there are these two cool franchises that we have movies for. Let's just make a bigger movie out of them.
Directed by W.S. Anderson, who also directed Resident Evil, most of the Resident Evil movies. But
those feel really similar in tone, which I was kind of surprised. Like, if you did one thing and it didn't like totally work, why would you do it again?
Well,
wow, that's great. Because he's married to Mila Jovovich, right?
Yeah, that's who they're married to. They've made like 4 movies together. I think he's directed like 4 of the movies, maybe 3, maybe 5. Who knows? This is a very iconic franchise. It's definitely one of them. It's no Star Wars, obviously, but it's definitely in my opinion, one of the most iconic action franchises of all time. It spawned, no pun intended, it spawned a handful of sequels, some really good, some not so good. Obviously, I assume, honestly, you've seen them all. Do you have a favorite, or do you feel like is there one in particular that adds so much to mythology that really greatens your experience watching some of the older versions?
I mean, I'm a sucker for the classic. I think it's extremely quotable. It flies by every single time I rewatch it. It's definitely one of my favorite Lego movies, as in like a movie I'll put on while I'm building a Lego set. Because I don't have to watch it with my eyes. I can just watch it with my ears, because I know the movie so well just because I grew up with it. But I definitely have the one I dislike the most is AVP Requiem, because the cinematography is just garbage and you can't see anything, and they give you absolutely no reason to care about any of these people, and I wish all of them would have just died. Like, not that they don't, but like gruesome, terrible alien related deaths.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like I'm the one of those weird people who, like, yeah, when I get to the alien stuff, when it comes to me and aliens, like, I really like Prometheus. I'm the weirdo who really was like, oh, that's the kind of backstory I was looking for, like the alien. Like, I need to know the genesis, and it turns out the genesis was this weird guy named, like, a weird robot named David, and that's fine. That's as much as I need to know. But like, you know, I really like this extended lore kind of stuff that really kind of opens the world up for it. So I'm really glad to actually have that context for the Predator. Like, we're getting dropped in on the Predator, but he's already in this stage of his life cycle, and his you know, his world is completely different and has a completely different narrative of what's going on and what they're doing, what their purpose is, than what we see in this movie.
And I also really like Predators because since you go to like you're not on Earth, and you find out that there are different, like, there's racism inside of the Yautjas, and I think that's really interesting.
What's Predators? What's that one?
Predators
That's the Adrian Brody one.
Adrian Brody's in one?
Yeah, Adrian Brody is like the action movie Hulk headliner guy in that one.
Yeah, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Adrian Brody's in it. Topher Grace. I always get Ben Foster and Topher Grace mixed up. Lawrence Fishburne is in it. Danny Trejo's in it.
Wait, that's not the one that was directed by Shane Black, right? Or did
no, it's not. It's by Nimrod Antal. Antal? How do you pronounce it? Mara, how do you say it?
I thought it was Antal, but I could be totally wrong. I try to find an interview where someone says their own name, and that's how I learn how to say names. Because it's the only way to not screw it up, is to just hear someone say their own name.
It's the guy that did like Vacancy, Control, a handful of Spanish films. But I actually Predators is my personal favorite, just because, I mean, you get so many different types of soldiers involved. Like, you have this Yakuza assassin dude.
Yep.
You get a doctor that ends up liking to kill people. You get
as they do.
You get Lawrence Fishburne. He at this point he's a guy that's suffering with some severe PTSD, and he's like actively, and he ends up trying to like trick them a few times. There's a lot to dive into with that one. But also I just really like Adrian Brody. I totally buy him as an action dude somehow.
Sure. Well, let me ask you guys this. You keep talking about how this is an endlessly quotable movie. I see that. I definitely see that there are parts of it that are like iconic. But what were some of your favorite, like, you know, either now or then when you first saw it, what were some of your favorite like lines or moments in the film?
I mean, obviously, get to the chopper. I mean, that's just so iconic. Like, you can scream it at anyone for any reason, regardless of the proximity of a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I did it again. I heard about this quote before I even saw this movie. But what about you, Drew?
I mean, I can be honest, like, the Shane Black stuff didn't annoy me as much as it probably should have. Maybe if I'd seen this in college or something, I would have been like, oh my God, this is like so not woke or whatever. But I was more just like kind of like, he's supposed to be such a ridiculous figure, right? Like, he's telling these jokes and like nobody's laughing. And I kind of found like his two jokes to be like kind of like, they were awful and cringy, but I kind of like thought that it was like a cool character beat. I was like, I know exactly who this doofus is. Like, you just get a sense of like how nervous and like how you know, hyped up he is as a character. So I actually kind of really liked that as a beat for him, like as a thing. You never see Shane Black in movies, but you know his work. He's Iron Man director and Iron Man 3, sorry. Or 2 or 3? No. 3, right? 2? 3? Is that wrong? 3. That's what I thought.
That's right. He already did.
And like Kiss Bang, which I honestly do believe that he gave Robert Downey Jr. his ability to like go be Iron Man, because Kiss Bang Bang was like the movie I feel like that reintroduced us to Robert Downey Jr. So I do think like Shane Black is
I thought Kiss Bang Bang came after.
I don't think so. Maybe it did. Did it not?
Because Iron Man was in like 2008.
The first one was
7? Yeah, 2007, 2008. Yeah.
8.
Yeah, 2005 was Kiss Bang Bang. Yeah.
Was it? Oh. Yeah.
So anyway, like I don't know. Like I've always like kind of like Shane Black's work. I have no opinions about him as an actor, but nor do I think he made up the dialogue for his own character in this movie. I don't blame that on like a Shane Blackism. So like I don't know. I thought that was like I thought like that was a funny character, like just to be like, yeah, that's the guy who's like way nervous and like shouldn't be here. Like that's the guy who's basically doing the like 2 days from my last retirement, you know, kind of thing. Like you just know that guy's gonna eat it first, like because he's just acting like such a nitwit, you know.
It's funny you say that actually, because I amazingly actually really agree. I think he's not so much an important character to the movie at all, but like you said, with character beat. But I feel like everyone knows a guy like this, but especially in an environment where it's so masculine, where there's just so much testosterone in the room, and there's soldiers, and so there's a lot of pissing contests between guys, and you know, stupid shit all the time, let's be honest, between guys when they're in the room together. And but there's in any group, there's always that one guy, not only is awkward and everyone's like, dude, what? Don't, like, that's stupid, but also I feel like it's a real character, I guess, because everyone knows people like him. It's almost like how Quentin Tarantino, he's like mentioned, I don't write real people, I write character. I'm not writing my beliefs, I'm not writing like what I actually say or what I would do. I'm writing characters. I'm writing actively bad people and bad characters, and that's what they would talk like.
Well, yeah, it's all about how you filter and distill that behavior, because you can't portray like every single person as a saintly figure on camera, because there are very flawed people in the world.
Completely.
But the fact that like on the chopper ride in, he's like telling this joke and it's just not landing, and the fact that like the other people don't indulge him in this like that it's funny or that they're like really into it, you know, I mean, that's the judgment that's placed upon that behavior by the movie, even though obviously the joke exists. And I can understand why some people would still find that something that they wouldn't want to hear, and that's totally fine for them. Not judging that at all. But I do think that the idea that they're not really like, they're not broing out with it, like, oh, haha, locker room talk, man. Yeah, like it at least shows that the movie itself is not condoning that and saying like, this is the cool guy in the group. This is the guy you want to be like.
Yeah, Arnie's not saying those lines. They're not patting him on the back.
Although, would I like them more if he was saying them? I don't know. Like, possibly. Well, those lines were coming out of Arnie's mouth, maybe.
Well, the ones that were like, there was that one, the vagina joke. There was the one where it's like, oh, you need to put.
There's two vagina jokes.
And that was said by him, and I was like, oh. There was one scene in the Joppa where I wasn't sure how to interpret the character. It's when I can't remember his name, where he ends up like spitting on Dylan's shoes, and my first thought was like, is this supposed to be a race thing? Because he's like glaring at him, because he's staring daggers at Dutch, yes, or was it Dylan? Yeah, he's like staring daggers at Dylan while they're sitting across from each other, and he is in the meantime he's chewing his tobacco, and he ends up spitting it purposefully on Dylan's shoes, and he kind of looks up at her, and they kind of lean in together, and he's like made up like talk for a second, but my first thought was like, is he like angry? Is he like being an asshole to him because he's black? That was my first thought. That was like how I interpreted his like character. I was like, are you just being like an asshole to Carl Weathers' character for no reason? Like you asshole. So that was like my first thought when it comes to his character in particular.
I think, because Bill Duke is on the team and he has no friction with him. I think that the impression is just that because Carl Weathers used to be Spec Ops, but then he left and now he works for the CIA. So it's just like, you know, you left the family and you're working for the kind of like almost the bad guy now, because, you know, the CIA is not exactly known for their wholesomeness.
Was he part of the family before?
I mean, he served with Dutch. So like he was part of like special forces before.
They were all part of the same unit in Vietnam. Is that correct? I think so.
I don't know if they were all together, but I know like he
Yeah.
served with Dutch. But I mean, I guess like the intimation from Jesse Ventura's character is just simply like you're a turncoat, or like, you know, why are we here listening to you go tell us to like go into the jungle and kill people or do something when like you don't even do it anymore, bro, or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
think
would.
that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah, that's why I was like unsure about his character, because I didn't personally because I pictured it as Dutch and Dylan being together in Vietnam. Dylan ended up becoming a leader of this other, you know, special forces essentially, and they just ended up separating. I never really thought of Dutch being part of their troop, essentially the family, or maybe there was like some bad blood between them, like going into it. So I was like, what? But also,
I mean, if you're not giving them much, I mean, that's the thing. It's that's kind of why it's nice to have the shorthand of like the jokes that Shane Black tells, or like the kind of relationships, because it does kind of have to work on shorthand. This isn't a movie where like you get a lot of the depth of the characters' relationships in terms of their relationships towards one another or their relationships or anything. It's an action movie. Like you don't get a lot of fleshed out backstory. But I guess this would be the equivalent of like, someone leaving Dom's group in the Fast and Furious movies only, you know, to show up as, you know, part of the bad group in like Fast 6 or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, because Bill Duke doesn't like Carl Weathers' character either. So, I mean, it's more than one person in that unit that's just like not having it with him. So,
yeah.
I still love that scorpion thing though, because the first time I saw that, I remember thinking, I was like, he's just going to kill this guy. Like no one's going to know.
Yeah, they can just do that out in the. Yeah, that's like when you still think the movie could possibly still be about, you know, the horrors, the crimes that are committed by this one paramilitary group, or, you know, you're not really sure like what's going to happen. It's just like one of these action movies, and there that scene with the scorpion is so gross and so intense, and you're like, you know, like I don't have that benefit of being able to walk into this movie blind because I'm 30 whatever years old, and like I know what Predator's about, but I can't imagine going in and seeing this movie and being like, what's going to happen? Are they just going to kill a guy in the forest and then I'll have to keep this terrible secret? No, that's not what the movie's about.
Well, what about you, Drew? Do you have any favorite favorite quotes in particular? Any major scenes?
I mean, I think the scorpion scene is great. I mean, that ending was pretty good just because I didn't think he was going to die. Or, I mean, I did think he was going to die. So, like, when he made it out, I was like, oh, yeah, fucking cool. Like, good. So, like, there's at least one person to carry on the story of the Predator who can go and sound crazy. I mean, no one's going to believe him. But, you know, I thought that was pretty cool. Sorry, a little bit burpy. I did really like her line about like, you know, it's the jungle, like it's the jungle became alive and came to get him. Like I was like, that's a great way of putting it. Like, and that's also like what it would look like from the ground, you know, if you were just objectively. Yeah.
He's just like the Doctor. He's like the like an evil version, or like an alternate universe's version of the Lorax. I am Lorax. I speak for the trees.
Yeah, because that's all she sees is like the trees attacking. Yeah, I mean, like, what would you think if you saw something that looked like nothing, like come and like just like tear him? It would look like space itself was tearing somebody to shreds. Like it would look like, you know, it was like looking like something like out of Annihilation. I mean, that's such a cool way to phrase it.
I mean, it's terrifying. It really, really is. I do want to mention real quickly, we're going to be going into our personal potential recastings here in a few moments. But real quickly, I kind of want to give you a quick summary about how this movie did circa 1987, my bad. But it was actually it was considered like a huge critical failure. However, it did actually make quite a bit of money. It actually opened #1 the week it came out. It actually it came out a #1 over Spaceballs, which is a V-Swick, and
how dare it,
and The Untouchables. So it had quite a bit to fight for. But it was nominated for Best Effects at the 1988 Oscars. It was, although it's considered a critical huge unsuccessful film, however, it did from the get-go right away they wanted a sequel. Right away they wanted to do more stuff with Arnie and him in more bigger mainstream roles. This was one of the more this was one of the first films where he was not only where he was actually getting a big role, but it was also in like what we associate now with the traditional Arnie films where he actually did Terminator obviously before, but between Terminator and this one, he didn't really do too much like major roles, supposedly. But even according to IGN and our Schmoedown sweetheart, William Bibbiani, he called Predator the most submersive action movie of the 1980s.
Yeah, it is very submersive. Yeah, I could see that.
Do you
It's almost like interactive. Yeah, you feel like you really are in the shit, as they would say.
I mean, I think this movie was lightning in a bottle because, I mean, you got really lucky that you had enough of a charismatic cast that you cared about them, even though they weren't given like fully and entirely three-dimensional characters.
Yes.
You had excellent cinematography. You had fantastic special effects. Like that first OG Predator face is like magnificent. It's so cool. Like it looks dewy, and that mandible and everything. It's just insane. And they actually do so much show don't tell. Like just the idea of like the heat vision with the scorpion. You know, you see Predator comes up and he sees the scorpion, and then it gets dimmer and dimmer, and then it's like white instead of red or green or whatever. Like they show you so much, and they don't have to sit there and explain the Predator technology to you. They don't have to explain what he's doing. And even though we get to kind of watch them discover it because they're almost the audience at that point, there's just something about it that feels so authentic. And I don't know if you could, when we're getting ready to talk recasting, I don't know if you could ever capture exactly all of that stuff the way that it did. It was just lucky.
I mean, like everything from the costumes, like there's like there's a bone necklace around its neck. Like obviously they had the armor, the technology, I don't even know what is that supposed to be?
Like a dreadlock, sort of.
Yeah, someone told me it's supposed to be inspired by dreadlocks. But I was like, I didn't even notice. I didn't think about the hair or tentacles. I'm not sure what's it coming in this case because I don't know what it is.
He's a Yautja.
This picture. But that was kind of interesting. I do want to correct you, Jeremy Renner, when I say it's not his breakout role because Terminator came out in 1984. So several years before this. So it was not his breakout role. Just wanted to remind you. Now, and also Conan the Barbarian, but that was considered like a huge indie movie. It wasn't like a big thing. Anyway, let's go into some of our recastings. Now, we can go into each and every character, obviously, because I feel like we'd be here for hours in that case. But if you can just recast one or two characters and or a director, let's start with Drew. This is your first one. Let's see some of your potential recastings and who do you pick as director?
I mean, as a director, yeah, I'm just gonna go with let's go with my instinct here. We're gonna go with David Lynch as a director. We're gonna go it's gonna be Predator is really gonna win itself its visual effects Oscar this year because I mean, look, they created the visual effects category after David Lynch's Elephant Man came out, and they had nothing to give it, even though it was incredible looking and what he was able to do visually with the style and the effects of how to make that character look. I think giving it to David Lynch and turning it into a strange, submersive kind of experience in a David Lynchian way, I think would be really cool. And the dialogue would be better. So I feel like, let's go with my instinct there. It's a David Lynch movie. And you know what? Let's put one of his old standbys in it. We could put Nick Cage in it. Put Nick Cage as the head of the paramilitary group in this movie. I want to see David Lynch's version of a war film. I mean, he did Dune, so he has some experience doing sci-fi. Let's do Nick Cage, and let's say he goes to his old lieutenant for more intel, so we get Willem Dafoe in there. Because I feel like Willem Dafoe in a Predator would be really cool.
That'd be really cool. I'll be into that. Yeah. What about you, Mara?
I actually was thinking about it. Like part of it is just his frame, but also that he's another non-American, so we would kind of preserve a little bit of that, like the fact that we perfectly and completely excuse an accented pseudo-American character. I was thinking Andy Serkis could play the Dutch character because
Nice.
he's enormous. Like I legitimately think he could curl me with one arm, and I really want him to try now.
Literally could. Literally could.
I mean, there's so many good action directors. It's tough because part of me wanted to lean into the creature angle a bit, especially if they do want to bring in some of the other like Yautja related like pets and things like that, and go for somebody like a Guillermo del Toro. But I don't want it to get too weird. I really want to preserve the action part. So I was thinking almost, what if you got a fantasy director who could clearly do action, even if it's been primarily CG action, but they could clearly do like person-to-person action. What about a Peter Jackson? Plus they've worked together before. So, I mean, that's just a winning combination if I had to find
Peter Jackson.
I'd also love to see like maybe Ryan Reynolds be in it, just because he can basically be in anything, and he could be the jokester who might actually land decent jokes. So I could see that working. He's also a very fit human being.
Right. You know what it kind of reminds me of? So what I'm hearing is that you want him to be a talkative kind of not assassin, but mercenary soldier figure. Do you remember his mouth being sewn up in a few?
It could be a shared universe, you know?
Yeah, this would definitely be a shared universe. I think
show up with his two swords. It'll be great.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, yeah, I'd be into that. I definitely agree with both of you. I think the idea of a fantasy director that completely bypassed me, and I'm a little sad I didn't think of that sooner. The actors I chose are Ben Foster and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. And Ben Foster, oh my gosh, I think I love Ben Foster. He's an underrated actor, under-talked actor. He's been in so many amazing movies, ranging from Hell or High Water to tons of stuff. But
he's one of NerdChronic's favorites.
I'm sorry?
He's one of NerdChronic's favorites, but also Yahya is amazing. So
yeah, he's phenomenal, and I really would like him to take on like this idea of a soldier. I even like a soldier, not so much with PTSD, but a soldier like going through some shit with this assignment, essentially. But him and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, if you're not familiar with who he is, I'm sure Mara is familiar. He's an Aquaman. He's in a bunch of amazing movies coming up very soon, but he worked with James Wan. And James Wan is someone I think he's really great with that kind of fantasy element, but also a lot of that horror angle, not only being part of the Conjuring franchise, directing and collaborating, but also with Aquaman. I liked a lot of the fantasy elements with that and the effects. So I think that would be a really interesting combination of people.
Ooh, regardless of who directed, actually bring in Jason Momoa. There's another big, strong, hulking gentleman to play a role. And actually, I really would love to see someone like a Gwendolyn Christie, because obviously the armed forces have gotten more progressive, not in every area, but like more progressive about females on front lines, etc. So I would also really like to see there be a strong, capable woman as a part of, like, obviously contextualize it based on what is capable for the real life military. Like, obviously right now it's not like there's a bunch of ladies walking around with spec ops, but you know, we're progressing. Women can die in war just as equally as men can. So
are we saying, like, did I hear that in a later Predator movie he doesn't kill a pregnant woman who does have a gun because they don't kill pregnant women?
Yeah, but effectively, like, he has the opportunity to dispatch her, but yeah, he sees that she is with child, and does not elect to.
So, like, kind of sexist of it. It's not up to him, but I get it. That's kind of a choice that they are making decisions about gender roles. But sure, fine, I get it.
I mean, I suppose perhaps because they believe in honor so much that, again, without getting in any way political, I'm just supposing what they might think. They might think that the fetus is not to blame for the actions of the person carrying it. So maybe they're just trying to give benefit of the doubt to the little sea monkey in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like, is that something they can see through the aqua vision, or sorry, the heat vision? They're like, I recognize there's like another heartbeat.
One of them visions, because they have all these different modes and stuff that they introduce in subsequent movies. So one of them.
Without getting political, I would say that life begins at the predator being able to recognize you as a sentient being. Like, that is where life begins historically. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's this is some really good recasting, guys. This is probably some of
I
our
have
best.
one more that I have to throw in there.
Okay,
It's
go ahead.
Donnie Yen,
Ooh.
because I want him in all the things, and he's a fantastic action star. Like he can do action choreography like nobody's business. So I want Donnie Yen in my movie.
Who is he from?
100%. Donnie Yen. He's in Rogue One as, I don't even know his character name, but he's
Isn't
in
the guy from the Raid?
Batman franchise. He's in a ton of movies. Oh my gosh. And also, he's quite stunning. He's so beautiful.
It's not the guy from the Raid, right? Because I just saw the Raid.
No, not the Raid.
No, it's a different
He's from the
franchise.
Batman
But
franchise. He's
I don't know.
you know him though. He's been in all sorts of stuff. He pops
There's
up
a guy
here
from
and there.
Rogue One who is in the Raid. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
no, who's in the Force
he plays,
Awakens.
the blind monk in Rogue One.
Gotcha.
Where he's
Gotcha.
like, I'm using the Force to tell me where to step, essentially. You guys,
Hello, puppy.
Oh, wow, this is Sammy. Hi,
let's
Sammy.
see.
I said puppy, and it woke up the kitty. He was like, You're not a puppy. You're a kitty. Although he does self-identify as a dog.
Now I gotta show you how my cat is doing. We're in the process of ordering. Oh, look at that.
Oh, I love when they curl.
No cutie. So,
Now this is just the animal hour. This is just the animal hour. Alex, why don't we say we're not doing just kind of like wraps up this episode, but we're not doing an episode for next week that's going to be based on the movie. Why don't we say what we're doing next week?
well, guys, real quickly, I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with us as we chill Predator. But also just want to let you know, next week is kind of a big deal for us. So we are actually going to be clocking in with our 1 year anniversary. So thank you so much. As a result, we are not going to be covering one movie in particular. It's going to be a general drink along, hangout, Q&A, but also we are actually doing a little bracket of our own where we're going to be we're going to be narrowing down all the movies that we covered. We're going to talk about, we're going to have like, we're going to find out like what movie was the MVP of the year of movies we covered. We're going to talk about what movie was our biggest surprise, what movie was our biggest letdown, all that good stuff. So definitely come hang out with us next Tuesday. And Mara, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Can I crash the party next week?
Yes, you absolutely can. We expect
Awesome.
it.
Awesome.
Mara, where can we find you? You've been so awesome and being on some stuff recently, and I know you're going to be on some stuff with us again later this week, or at least on
Almost like you guys are faction mates or something crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like I see you around. So
Exactly. I lurk around the internet. You can follow me on Twitter at thatmara and on Instagram at thatmarala. Still don't know how to use Instagram. Any advice is welcome. I lurk on Dan Murrell's Patreon, patreon.com/Dan Murrell, and I help edit and produce and also lurk on his channel, youtube.com/Dan Murrell Movies. And you can find me anywhere that you can access the dungeon. So if you can actually find the secret door, and then you can figure out what Elvish word you need to enter, what kind of fruit word it might be. We're doing some really wicked.
All you need to be is like a patron of VideoDREW, and you're in. Essentially.
Yeah.
Dungeon's doing some wicked renovations. It's going to be sick. Got to make room for all those belts. So you can find me anywhere that you can find the dungeon.
Wait, do you have the belt yet, Mara? Do you have your belt? Is that a thing?
I will talk to you about that offline. There are some plans.
Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah, that is not something for general knowledge yet. That's dungeon only knowledge. Alex, what about you? Where can we find you?
Well, I was gonna say, we'll say it's you next, lady.
Oh, me?
Okay, yeah. These beautiful dogs here.
This is me and my dog. This is my channel. I always forget to tell people to please like and subscribe and comment, so I guess I'll do that now. Mondays and Thursdays, we do the VideoChronic pop culture quiz at usually 8 p.m., but it can be 9 p.m. At this channel right here. So actually on Thursday, we are going to be doing one at 9 p.m. We're going to be doing, guess what? This movie, Predator. We're going to be doing Predator. Mara's going to be joining us. So that's going to be the VideoChronic pop culture quiz, 20 inner geekdom style questions about one specific movie or franchise. In this case, it's just going to be about the first Predator movie. So definitely show up for that. We're going to have some fun. You can win some money. I won Hook last night. That was like my third time I've ever won one of these VideoChronic quizzes because they're really hard.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then guys, on Tuesdays, we do Cinema Bias right here. On Sundays I do Live in the Dark with VideoDrew, which is like my in kayfabe sort of style talk show between two ferns meets Space Ghost. It's really fun. Mara was on the week before last, and it was so much fun. We had like a 2-hour show. It was like the most fun ever. And yeah, so sign up for my Patreon, patreon.com/VideoDrew, and you can get a chance to come in for the study sessions that we do, that I hold, and a bunch of other fun stuff, as well as like recommend movies for this or for VideoChronic. And now my doggy's making noises because I figured out how to work that thing. Okay, yeah. How about you, Alex?
Oh, look, Robert Parker just showed up, Drew.
What up, Robert?
Robert Parker, it's past your
Robert.
bedtime.
Have a good night, Robert. Bye.
You can actually find me up there at Real Alex Mac on Twitter. You can also find me being part of the collection crew, where I do a bunch of stuff ranging from doing Twitter on Tuesday. It's not Twitter, sorry, Twitch on Tuesdays, and I host a show called Schmoebates, where we do a lot of Schmoedown debating. But real quickly, we didn't get a chance. We didn't get a chance to talk about this yet. But I just want to leave this thought with y'all. If I can find it real quick. Danny DeVito as the Predator. So yeah.
Perfect. And then Christopher's idea that it's all weird looking actors, and then take the matter off. It's Jared Leto. Last Mercenary says you're one ugly mother. I would just say Jared Leto is not an attractive man, so that doesn't track for me. But I do see what you're saying. And Amber saying you're the Brack of the show. Amber, you can absolutely be the Brack of the show. I love Brack. That's my favorite character of Space Ghost. So appreciate you. Appreciate your husband coming in and doing that awesome impression.
Yes, bravo.
Get to the choppa. But thank you, Mara, so much for coming on, and thank you, Alex, and everybody. And we'll see you next time
for a 1-year anniversary.
Yep, 1-year anniversary next week. See ya.